All right, it's 7:30 and I'd like to call together the May 29th, 2025 school committee meeting. If you would all rise and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. This evening we have our consent agenda posted, which is contains the minutes from the May 15th, 2025 meeting, as well as the bills and payroll. So a motion made to accept that.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Motion made by Ms. Simpleman,
I second.
second by Ms. Woods. All those in favor indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. It's our first opportunity for interested citizens. So if there's anyone in the room or on Zoom that would like to speak before the school committee, you'll have a second chance at the end of the meeting.
Nobody online.
Mr. Sandy? Believe you know the routine, but if you just state your name and address for the record.
George A. Sanders, 672 Great Road. I'd just like to speak a little bit about the Shaker Lane. I did a program on the 22nd of May by Shaker Lane because I had spoken to several individuals and they was a little concerned about the price tag for the number of classes, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. They thought that was a costly price to build for the school. And I was sort of kind of kicking around because they wanted more classes there. And I was talking to the director of the LCTV there, and I was telling him what my thoughts were when I get ready to do the program. So he sort of kind of threw out a few scenarios there, and I sort of kind of agreed with him there with regard to, he said, you know, make it K through 4. And that would probably give us an opportunity maybe not to have to build another new school, depending on what came into Shaker Lane, saying if you did a 1 through 4, then you could have 5 and 6 at Russell Street, 7 and 8 at the middle school, and then you have the high school. So it would depend on what would be pushed into the high school there. May very well mean that you could add on a little bit of space, but that's a lot different than building a new school altogether there. So I was throwing my support behind that, excuse me. And I don't know how much time you give here to say, but I also went in and sort of kind of explained to the people that, you know, when the new coming area come in up here, that there's going to be money that's going to be coming in. So I had spoke to the head assessor, and she told me that she hadn't looked into exactly what was what, because right now we as citizens, we are paying the difference between what the town is entitled to collect for $550 up there. And I know the past previous 2 years, we were paying about $130 over and above what our taxes were. And I wanted to know where we were at based on that, because that assessment was made at $60 million when they did that. So I talked about the new income coming in. I talked about the town putting a stabilization in for the school. And that I talked to the assessor and I told her what I was looking for. And she said, well, yeah, George, I understand. Come back to me in August. I should be able to give you a better reading on what's what. She said, but I understand you want to offset. I said, we're eventually going to have to build a new school. So I'm looking at an offset for the taxpayer. So I'm saying if they can take the new growth that's coming in and they can put maybe at least half or more over there in that stabilization, let's just use, for example, I said, if we're talking about 1,500 would be added to the taxes, half of that would be $750. But we may get enough money in. This will be down the road a little bit. We were hurt a little bit for a short period of time, but we may only have to put 500 over and above what we're paying for our property tax. So my offset was that would be done yearly, until such time that that debt was paid in full. So if we went to 120 million, 130 million on it, I'm saying that, you know, this is a way that we, because the money comes into town, we have a final say as to where this money goes. And the offset would be that we will put as much money as we could toward that school, because that would be the biggest debt that the town would have. So that was my take and promoting on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you.
Mr. Sanders, I appreciate you coming, and I feel inclined to, respond. We typically don't always respond to public input. I love the enthusiasm. I really appreciate you helping us get the word out there. There are some challenges with changing the grade levels within the buildings that we currently have as it relates to the MSBA program where we're receiving state aid. So we're essentially replacing an existing building. I know a lot of folks are complaining about the cost. That's just simply what it costs to build a building of that size based upon the needs of our students. If we were to include more grades, the cost would only rise from there, and it would just seem more and more expensive. The best time to have built a new school would have been 10 years ago, and it's certainly not 10 years from now if we choose to pass on this opportunity. And then lastly, I'll say the select board and the finance committee are more than willing to take input, work collaboratively with other boards and other citizens on strategies to buy this debt down as quickly as we possibly can. I had a conversation, I believe 550 King Street in its heyday was assessed at 60. I think maybe now it's 30. We've got to have $30 million of appreciation to get back to where we were. And then based upon the Grand Master Plan, it might be a $120 million property. I think those numbers could be wrong, but it's something like that. And they've taken a look at the extra tax revenue coming in, and the feedback that I got was it doesn't move the needle much. I mean, it certainly will produce free cash for the bottom line, but with the additional units, the additional folks, it's roads need to be replaced, additional fire and safety, and so every penny helps. It's not, I don't believe it's going to be a huge windfall for the town. I wish it was, but thank you for your input, and I'm happy to have more conversations after the meeting or any other time you can catch me. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our recognition portion of the meeting. I'll turn this over to Superintendent Clenchey.
One recognition this evening, tomorrow night, we get to celebrate our 2025 graduates. Tomorrow night at 5:30, Alumni Field. Keep your fingers crossed that we don't have any rain tomorrow night, and so far so good. And that's it for acknowledgements tonight. Until we're almost at the end of the year.
Yeah, right. We did have a nice retirement ceremony prior to this meeting. It's 7 or 8 folks retiring from the district.
7.
All right, we're going to move into our presentation portion of the evening. We've got there's 5 on the agenda. It's probably around 4. First up is the CPAC update. So members of the CPAC will give an update on the events in the 2024-2025 school year. Welcome, CPAC members. Now we're clapping on the way in. It's an interrupter.
Enthusiasm.
Few of our audience members. Do you want us to introduce ourselves?
You're more than welcome to. You're not obligated as citizens
Yeah.
because you're representing a group. But
Okay, well, I'm Rebecca Freeman. I'm Carrie Eckley. I have Allison McCarthy too, and we're the we were this year the interim leadership team. Yeah, you can go into that. So Allison was able to put together a timeline for just what we covered this year. This was our second year as an interim group, interim team. And so we did a little more planning, had more time to plan, and we put together a few more events. And I mean, you can look at it, but the one thing I wanted to point out about the first one was we did have Parks and Rec come to talk about adaptive sports. That was really successful, and they did start running an adaptive program, which was awesome. So it was good to have them there and engaged. And then we through MassTech, we offered the basic rights training in November, and then we did some social meetups, and then we did have elections in April.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then the last one, I guess we shouldn't forget, is a really great panel we had, that the district put together, I guess hearing from, you know, older students or grads on their journeys, so that was really appreciated, I think.
Yeah, they did an excellent job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
So, and then Carrie.
Oh, and we have June coming up.
Oh, yes.
Weekend.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
it'll be a good turnout at Shaker Lane to have a parent meetup, let the kids play. So we also did, is there another slide? Before?
No.
That's
Wait, a third one? No, we have three.
Okay. Well, I'll just go over some of the topics that we talked about for next year for meetings. We talked about, and this came from a suggestion from a parent, sharing resources, some like kind of like a portal of local therapists, camps that we've found successful, OT, speech therapists, just anybody that people have worked with for their kids that could be of benefit. We talked about doing a book review, kind of like a book club, choosing and selecting a book, a topic, and then getting together to discuss. Don't really have the book list yet. And then for workshops and topics that we'll be covering, we'll do the MassPAC Basic Rights with the Federation, and some other ideas for workshops or panels or presentations would be behavior, anxiety, and bullying. I think there's been an anxiety one in the past that was really successful. Yeah, and then just working on engaging more in the school community for the upcoming year.
Questions or comments for the CPAC team?
Yeah, last time I went to one of your meetings, it felt like you were really starting to gain traction. That's it.
Yeah.
Have you been getting more and more parents involved as time has gone on?
I feel like it's been, it's
Slow,
been
yeah.
slow but surely. I mean, I'm happy that we had liaisons that decided to volunteer for those positions, which is great.
Yeah, so we were able to fill most of the positions at the elections, which was, and they were all pretty much a lot of new family, you know, new faces since kind of the last group. So.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's a good sign.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for all the work you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
I'll say, like, I'm a little biased right now. Alex,
Yeah, I know.
But you guys do great work. It's really, it's sort of the message across the district. Like, there are wonderful resources in this district, CPAC being one of them. You just have to take advantage of it, right? So I have attended a number of the events, and although they might be small, like, they're powerful. Like, even if it's just the social night out, right?
Right.
Parents come and they're like, oh my God, I just need to take a deep breath. And then it's like, it's the same sort of everyone has the same conversation, and everyone feels like their anxiety goes down. And then the workshops where folks can sort of learn to navigate different processes. Like, it's easy if you're navigating special education with your second or third child, but if you're the first time going through it, it's nice to have a buddy that can kind of give you the do's and don'ts or the tips and things like that. So awesome job. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you to Lynn too.
Yeah.
For all your
I
support.
know.
And her team.
We're looking forward to next one.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for everything that you do, and I'm so glad to stay on.
All right, next up, we're gonna hear our school improvement plan review for schools. All principals, school administrators will focus on the two major goals for the 24-25 school year. I think Principal Kane is up first.
Everyone, thank you for having us.
Here we go. Okay, so the superintendent charged us with two goals this year, SMART goals. Like, my brain goes right to SMART, specific, measurable, action-oriented results, and timed and tracked. And goal number one was really good. I felt like we partnered, Russell Street, Mr. McDonald and I partnered to really focus on our new ELA curriculum. So it was a different curriculum than our staff is used to. It is a knowledge-based curriculum. And one of the big action steps is really supporting our staff, taking their lead on where are they, where do we meet them, how do we move them forward. So we had an implementation team that Mrs. Steele put together over the summer. we met several times and we began to work on developing materials, presentations, anything that we needed for the program. So we started in that over the summer, and then Mr. McDonald and I talked about providing professional development through the implementation team on our 2 building-based early release days. So that's the first part that you see the action steps there. And it was really talking about what is the program, how do we implement it, how do we unpack it, and we really walked slowly through the steps with the staff. I provided a Google form feedback. What did they want to learn more? What did they need more information about? And at that point, I said, all right, I think that we at Shaker Lane, we need to pump the brakes and really give them time to digest this material. So every month there is a grade level or staff meeting. Every month we have 2 meetings, a staff meeting and a grade level meeting. And I was talking with our assistant principal and I said, I really think we just need to give them one of those hours to work together. So through the rest of the year, October through June, they have a month that is just dedicated for team time to look at the materials, to plan, to coordinate, to provide scaffolds, any kind of interventions and supports for that curriculum. So that's the monthly meeting. That's the monthly 1 hour dedicated team time to work on programming. The one before that is the implementation team that began in the summer. We continued to work throughout the year. We worked on pacing guides, feedback. We looked at student work. I don't want to steal everything. I'm sure Mr. McDonald's going to talk about some other stuff. And then the last piece was before, when we were looking at researching the program last year, in the 23-24 school year, we had a few staff go over to North Andover, and it was very positive when this program was decided upon, and we had it in the fall. Mrs. Steele coordinated another visit for, now we have the program, now let's go to it. Let's bring our entire staff that wants to go, grades K to 5. And so those were other district visits that we did this year. So indicators of success, I think one of the things that North Andover called it was the pit of despair. Valley of Despair, Valley of Despair. And North Andover said, you're going to hit the Valley of Despair. Just embrace it. You will climb out. And so I think we rode that this year, roller coaster. We had ups and downs, and there were tears, there was sweat. I don't believe there was blood, but we did a lot of good hard work. And we saw today, just one little piece, Carrie's daughter is a first grader at Shaker Lane. And one of the culminating activities that the first grade team put together focused on the last module, which was the Cinderella, and they had a ball. So they had a ball. The kids were dressed up. They came in tuxedos. They came in ball gowns, crowns, and we had the celebration in the gym this afternoon. So really just taking the learning and the heavy work and celebrating that. So, and we have some other things. I know there's a kindergarten teacher. This ties into the second one. She is their last unit study, module study is the continents. And so she's celebrating the whole unit and the Wit and Wisdom program by inviting families to bring in a food that represents the continent that they studied. So she has a sign up. They're coming in next week. So really just celebrating the hard work that we've done with this program. So indicators of success, the teachers were able to plan complete lesson plans, work on creating a bank of resources. We have our special ed staff that has a Google folder that has scaffolded resources for some of the focusing task questions that the kids have to complete, and other pieces that can help them with sentence starters and different ways to access the material. We're working on a data tracking system. If you move that arrow just a little bit, the data tracking system, still working on that. Move that little arrow. That's okay. The data tracking system, I need to gather a little bit more feedback, at least at my school, about that. And we talked about it a lot in our implementation team. There are some grade levels that are really tracking the data very well there. And I feel like just moving slowly with that and really making sure that we're doing it next year, where we were learning the program this year, was the piece that we needed, and then continuing up with that next year. And then next year, we are redesigning the Wit and Wisdom block of learning based on the staff's feedback and visits. So that was our first goal. The second goal, high expectations. This was to really design and implement 2 to 5 DEIB focused activities for students and staff and families that promote awareness and have 75% of involvement with each project. Yeah, it's smart, but I didn't get it done. As far as like the involvement, because what I realized about this goal is I was relying on other people to fulfill a goal that I was setting. And so when I reached out to families and said, hey, do you want to come in and present at a community meeting? parents are busy. You know, we had a fantastic cultural fair. I say that will be the highlight of this year. This was a joint effort with Russell Street. And we added in dancers and we added in food, and it was incredible. But having a goal that involves other people to take over what I think we should be working on. That's why you'll see that the cultural fair to me is the one piece that we did that hit that. We had such a fantastic turnout that night. But then when we talk about the classroom presentations, the Holy Rangoli art, the Taste Around the World celebration, student spotlights, diversity story readings, these were things that we do within the school to create inclusivity. And it really, as much as I would have wanted parent involvement, it's just really hard. We have a very busy parent family community that are not able to do those things. So thinking about it and thinking about next year, Rebecca Deacon, the assistant principal, and I were brainstorming like, all right, this didn't go as planned. How can we revamp it? So we've been thinking a lot about, at the beginning of the year, we hang up signs that we created 2 years ago that say welcome in every single language that you can think of. And 2 years ago, we had the kids pick out the language in their classroom. The kids signed it. So they're now our second graders, because this would have been 2 years ago. So they'll be next year's second graders, and we hang them in the lobby. So this year we're trying to think, how can we change that up? So we're thinking of doing, it's called an identity collage. And it's where we have the kids do drawing, pictures, magazine cutouts that explains, their family, their culture, and, what they aspire to do. So really just showing their faces and what they, having that sense of belonging in the hallway. And then a couple of other things that we're thinking of doing is just inviting community members in to Shaker Lane, police, fire, other people, just to create that sense of belonging and inclusivity. So I feel really proud of us with the first goal and the second goal, maybe just missed the mark with the intention, but still always being inclusive and thoughtful about all of our students and families.
Questions or comments for Principal Kane? Renee?
And Michelle, what would you do next year in regard to goals? Because what I'm appreciating is, well, when you say I didn't make that goal, but it sounds like you learned a lot about why. And I just wondered if you could share that.
Yeah. So what my goals would be next year, or what?
Well, like what did you learn that you're going to bring to goal setting next time?
Yeah. It's something that I'm in control of, really just not relying on other people. So one of the things Rebecca Deacon and I are working on this summer is really creating some norms for how to respond to students and creating capacity with our staff. We had a fantastic PD last week with Jessica Minahan. And I think that is one of the biggest goals, is imparting what we've learned to the staff, but we have that information. We're the key holders. We can, take that information and present it with the staff. So I think it's just really looking at what can we do, not what do I have to rely on other people to do for me. I think that's what I learned from this.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking.
What about the redesign of the learning block?
So this year we had a standard 90-minute wit and wisdom learning block for first and second grade. For kindergarten, I think we had 75 minutes. And when we, in learning the program, one of the things that they said to us was focus on the pacing, give it the time that you need to learn this program. And going to North Andover and watching them, they're like 3 years into the program, and coming back and learning the program, we said to the teachers, all right, we've really focused on this curriculum whole group for the most part lesson, but we kind of lacked a little bit in the small group. So some of the staff were saying that 90 minutes was too much, and other days it wasn't enough. So we put a survey out to the staff, to the team leaders, tell us what your staff wants for a literacy block. Most of them said about 60 to 75 minutes. So what we've done is we are taking that wit and wisdom curriculum, unpacking it within a wit and wisdom block, and then we have another 30 minutes for small group instruction. So it was really getting our feet wet with the program, giving it the dedicated 90 minutes every day. Our staff is finished. We finished the program. Some finished this week, some finished 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we're like, okay, we think we can do this. I think kindergarten said 60 minutes, first and second grade around maybe 70 minutes. So that's the design and just the feedback and going through the program. And
did that seem to be the North Andover strategy as well?
Theirs, I think theirs was I'm trying to think back because I didn't go this year. I went last year. No, I think that they have a different one. I actually can't even. Let me get back to you on that. And the reason.
Were they during the day to observe the instruction, or were they afterwards to just talk to the teams?
When our staff went we actually did both. We had time to observe and then time to consult with them afterwards. The piece that we were hearing from our staff was that they focused so much on learning the content and the delivery of the program to fidelity, but they were missing that small group instruction time. And we dedicated this to Wit and Wisdom. So some teachers were actually able to figure it out this year on their own, but then, we didn't want to force them. We just said, let those people figure it out. And then as a group, we'll move forward together and figure it out next year. So some of our second grade teachers and some first grade teachers and kindergarten teachers all figured out how to do small group instruction. But it really was just those that weren't ready and wanted to just focus on the program and wanted to give them the time so that it didn't feel like it was forced upon them.
Question?
Yeah, no, I've still got more.
Oh, okay.
No, I appreciate your reflection on the second goal because I feel like it's okay not to meet a goal, because if you always had to craft goals that you were sure you were going to meet, they would never be rigorous, right? So I think it's really great to set your sights high, and when it prompts such a deep reflection, I think it's a worthwhile goal. So I appreciate your deep thinking about, what worked with that goal and what you would do differently. And I also just want to thank you for being such a strong instructional leader. It's not, I don't think we should assume that every principal is involved with the instructional piece as you are. And I think Colin is too, that, to be this involved with it and to be really listening to your teachers and watching what's happening in the classroom, and to know when they need to take a beat, know when to push them, when to pull back, that you're really taking the pulse of what's going on in your school. And I think that's so important with rolling out a new curriculum. So really kudos to you for being such a strong instructional leader.
Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that the cultural fair is such a highlight. I'm glad you acknowledged that, and hope you all keep doing it. It was such a success this year. I've already gotten requests from the same group to do another dance. I was like, I don't even know if they're doing a cultural fair, but sure.
So Bino was one of the people that we reached out to have a group of girls do Bollywood dancing. And it was amazing. So we had Bollywood dancing, and I think that Aubrey did Irish step dancing. So we had Irish step dancing presentation. We had Bollywood presentation. Then what we learned is we needed to give time between both presentations, because after yours, we went right into the Irish step dancing, and then the kids wanted to learn it. But I think some kids wanted to learn the Bollywood. So I think it was powerful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Dominic.
Good evening, everyone. So for Russell Street, we have a very similar first goal to Shaker Lane. So I could just easily say same as Michelle for a lot of the things that were on our action steps and our indicators of success, rather than just repeating a lot of the same things. I think I'd like to highlight are a few unforeseen obstacles that I think were Russell Street specific when it came to Wit and Wisdom implementation this year. The first one that comes to mind is the pacing of this program. So Wit and Wisdom for every grade level has 4 modules that students go through, many of which are around 30 to 35 lessons per module. Many of those lessons, especially in first year of implementation, cannot be completed in one school day or in one 90-minute block for students. So over the summer, when the implementation team started to do their work, the administrative team sat down and looked at our school calendar, looked at those modules, looked at the number of lessons per module, and tried to map out when we thought each module should be starting and ending throughout the school year. Now, we did that having never taught one of those lessons to any of our students. So it was more or less a shot in the dark that we tried to stay pretty true to. But one of the unforeseen obstacles, I guess we could have foreseen it, was that pacing guide was off in some areas for certain grade levels throughout the year. So one of the things that we're very fortunate to have and I'm very grateful for are our implementation team members that are on those grade levels that were really collaborative with myself, Ms. Romano, Ms. Steele, to come up with some creative ways when they realized through their really hard work and planning that pacing guide was not going to align, either because we underestimated how much time something would need, school events come up, benchmark testing, right, a couple snow days here and there. So how do we adjust that pacing guide while staying true to the fidelity and integrity of the program that we have been saying all year we want to do. So that looked differently in certain grades. Third grade, you know, we built in these buffer days here and there that we knew we might be able to play with a little bit. So third grade made some shifts to manage and move around those makeup days or those buffer days. Fifth grade is still plugging along because they have the longest modules and the most in-depth work to do. So I'm just really, that was a really great learning experience, I think, for all of us. Now that we're, you know, really in the weeds with this program and we know what it looks like and feels like and what elements of lessons are really the meat and potatoes of what we want to work on with our students versus the things that we might not need to spend as much time on in year 2 of implementation, because we now know that skill or that concept comes up 3 lessons down the road and we can really spend some time to dive into it at that point. So pacing, I think, was one of the big things that we worked through in order to reach this goal this year, which I'm really happy we were able to wrestle with it because it's going to make us better for year 2 of implementation. The second unforeseen obstacle that I'm proud of my team for really working through this year, as Kane mentioned, this is a knowledge building curriculum. And when you get into the upper grades in 4th and 5th grade, some of that knowledge that we're building and the concepts that we're working on with students are heavy and are powerful and are sometimes uncomfortable or unfamiliar with some of our students and families. Right, 4th grade is reading survivalist novels about, you know, a main character who is in peril and has to, you know, fend for himself and has feelings of self-doubt and uncertainty and fear, and working through that with our students. Some of our 5th graders in their Civil War unit are talking about right, the first war that's photographed. So they're looking at, you know, photographs from the Civil War, and then also talking about the young boys that were a part of that Civil War that are not much older than some of our 5th graders now, and working through some of the emotions that may bring up. So that was a real learning experience for a lot of us. And again, I'm happy that we have grade level teams and teachers and implementation leaders that are comfortable to come and say, hey, this is what I'm hearing from my team. We're not really sure how to broach this subject with our students. Can we talk through this? Or I've got a parent that really wants to just kind of get a better understanding of what's in this text and what we're working on with our students. Can you give us a hand in managing that? And that's something that I'm again happy that we went through this year, because we can make some adjustments when we have determined that some of the things that are in the curriculum may not fit the Littleton community, and how we might want to massage that or alter things a little bit, but also lean into some of the uncomfortable parts of you know, literature or our history or the topics that we want to have with our young folks, to make sure that we are preparing them and building all aspects of their knowledge through this curriculum. So that's kind of my little update on Wit and Wisdom. I'm happy that we got through the first year in the Valley of Despair every now and then, but we're out, and hopefully we're not there over the summer. The second goal for Russell Street, as I mentioned to you all when we spoke in fall, when I first met all of the staff members, the thing that I heard over and over again when I was getting to know Russell Street and the community was the idea of Stripe and having Stripe be more of a prevalent symbol for Russell Street and all of the community events and assemblies that used to bring the school together. So I crafted this second goal to kind of combine the two of bringing Stripe back to the forefront of Russell Street School, using a PBIS model, and having Stripe be the cornerstone of bringing the school community together in assemblies and activities to do. And I'm really happy that we have a lot to show for this goal for this year. The first and most important is the assembly of our Stripe team. I put the word out for any staff members that were interested in reinvigorating this program, and I had lots of great volunteers, and they have met with Ms. Romano and I at least monthly since we got that rolling to spearhead some new initiatives. And I'm very proud that someone can come to a meeting, to a Stripe meeting, and have an idea, and we can talk through that and then say, let's run with it, take care of whatever you need to take care of, let us know how we can help, and then things happen. And it's that organic enthusiasm about something that's important to our educators because they know it's helpful for our students that really makes me excited about continuing the Stripe program. Other action steps, we developed some new incentives for students. We have the cafeteria cup, the reflex raffle. We've got the traveling green light. One that I'm really happy and proud of is our student Stripe nominations. So typically when a student is caught doing good by a staff member, they'll get a slip of paper that's a Stripe, and a portion of that will get hung up in Chillville in our front lobby, and another portion will go home so the student can let them know about the parents. But that was all adult to student given, and we wanted to change that up a little bit and make sure that our students had the opportunity to recognize their peers. So each month when we have a Stripe assembly, focusing on one of the areas of Stripe, safety, take responsibility, respect, integrity, perseverance, and empathy, each homeroom nominates a classmate from that class that has exemplified that element of Stripe that we're recognizing for the month. And those students get called up and get recognized as having received a peer-nominated Stripe award, which for my money is way better than any Stripe that you can get from a teacher because you're getting it from your friends because they're recognizing all the great things that you're doing in school. We have had a few other cool things, like we had again, to get some student voice and choice in there, Heidi McGregor, along with Sarah Morton, our librarian aide, did a sticker contest where students used Canva to design a Stripe sticker that we then, all of the students voted on as which sticker each grade level was going to get to show their stripes, and just lots of really great ways to invigorate Stripe, bring it back. And the last thing I'll mention for our Stripe assemblies is we've been able to include the community in those Stripe assemblies. So for example, when we had our safety Stripe assembly, we invited members of the police department, the fire department to come talk about what safety means in their line of work and how our students can be safe. We talked about bike safety. We had Julie Lord come and talk from the technology perspective about internet safety. We had Nurse Sullivan talk about some of the things that she has on her radar in terms of keeping our students safe from a nurse's perspective. We have brought in a guest artist, Bren Bataclan, to talk to our students when it came to respect, because he's the smile artist, and all of our kids walked away having created a piece of art that we're going to install over the summer somewhere in the school to reflect the work with that. So just really invigorating Stripe for all of our students. I mentioned a couple things. So one thing I mentioned was our Green Light Award. So this is our traveling green light for the homeroom that perseveres the most over the course of the week and gets the most green lights on our reflex math program that we use. So Susan Mitchell tracks all of the students and the green lights that they receive. They earn a perseverance stripe if they've reached 100% proficiency. And the homeroom each week that earns the most green lights, they have persevered the most by spending enough time getting their math facts and practicing their math automaticity. So that homeroom, I stole this from Ms. Schofiel's classroom, so I got to put it back tomorrow morning. So that's one fun thing for our students. The other, I mentioned our sticker contest. This is a school committee exclusive. I've got stickers for school committee members. So these were the winners of our sticker contest. Students don't even have these yet, so pick a sticker.
Good addition.
Yeah, you're gonna be the talk of the town. So just a few things that I'm really proud of and happy about that bringing Stripe back to Russell Street.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Councilwoman McDonald? John?
I just wanted to say I really like how you're using peers, whether it's encouraging them with giving them awards, or also I feel like you have a whole room that has to get all their work done. I think it kind of encourages everyone to kind of support each other and understand something, you know, obviously the teacher, but also, you know, give them out. That's great.
Yeah, thank you for all that you're doing for community building at this school. Like I'm having some deja vu because I was remembering thinking that same thing when you introduced the goals in the fall. But I, you know, as a principal new to the district, it's so important to build your own sense of community and with the staff and the students. And it really seems like you've done so much with that, so much enthusiasm. So that's awesome. And thank you for all the work you've been doing with pacing with Wit and Wisdom. That sounds like it was a heavy lift. And then, as I'm sure you know, like the first year with a new curriculum always goes slower. It will when you're more proficient. It's almost like everything you learned about pacing this year may not play out the same next year. But it's so important because the worst thing is to, like, you know, get to the end of the school year and be like, well, we ran out of time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
So thank you for all the effort that you're putting into it to make it cohesive for the students. So.
I know that yes, the pacing will be different next year, but I know that our teachers are excited about that because they're already recognizing how they can maneuver those lessons to make the pacing a little more comfortable for them and their students.
Yeah, great.
I appreciate you. Oh, sorry. You're acknowledging just sort of the content, which was like a little bit surprising. You know, they do the passages at home, and first time they read the passage, I was like, should we talk about this? Like, I can't check. What is check plus? We need to talk about the content you just read. So I'm just curious, and you mentioned that too, in sort of teachers, or I think you mentioned teachers sort of seeking guidance or having questions around that. Are you thinking next year sort of approaching that differently, or is there professional development, or do they feel like because they learned a lot this year and take that into next year?
I think this being new to everyone this year was a challenge. So I think next year, knowing what's coming, knowing how those conversations have gone in classrooms, I'll tell you that I think teachers were sometimes very nervous about a section of a book that was coming up, and they read it with the class and it turned out to be a big nothing burger. And it was like, okay, we're just moving on because that didn't hit as they may have been, you know, expected it to, and vice versa. There were things that students had questions about that teachers, you know, may not have been ready to answer for students or to have that conversation yet. Having gone through that this year, I think our teachers are going to be better prepared.
Yeah.
And we all are also making small changes here and there to make sure it is, you know, more aligned with, you know, what we want to teach for our community.
I just wanted to say to Colin and Michelle and Beth, when we brought Colin on board as the principal of Russell Street School, one of the things that we talked about was creating a stronger connection between Shaker Lane and Russell Street. The vision I've always had is two separate schools, but the K-5 approach so that it's a seamless transition from one school to another. The implementation of Into Math, Wit and Wisdom is a great example because we were doing this together as a K-5 team. So there have been some struggles, obviously, because Wit and Wisdom especially is very, very different compared to what we were doing in the past. But having that connection and the ability to see the vertical alignment, working together to solve problems and challenges has just created a connection that I've yearned for years. It's kind of funny when you implement something as huge as we did. There was an opportunity to create a better understanding of K-5 education and having teachers from each school start to connect with each other. So I just want to commend the three of them for, I feel you've done an outstanding job in your Stripes program, you know, piggybacking off Shaker Lane, It's seamless what you're doing. So thank you so much to the three of you. It's a lot of hard work, and it's difficult to connect two schools when they're not physically attached. I think you both have done a great job doing that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing for you, by the way. My friend, you started a dangerous competition. By next year, we'll be driving home in new cars. Look on your chairs. You get a car. You get a car.
Another sticker.
No, I got to one up it.
That's right.
September's at least dinner. Right? You're gonna buy gift certificates. You know, I can't be outdone.
You dressed for it.
Well, yeah, I was gonna leave you with this beautiful face to go home, right? Just have that your dreams, but I guess that's not good enough. Thank you. So our two goals, very different in what they look like, but equally important in terms of how they play out. So our first goal really centered around the idea of relationships. Post-COVID, we see such a difference in the way students, middle school students, respond to adults and the needs. And we, part of our job as administrators is to see what's happening 3-5 years down the road and try to adapt to it so when these things are ready. And so in the work we do with UDL and the work that we're doing with social emotional learning, it all gets back to this idea of relationships and being able to converse and get to know your students on the level so that if something arises, you can have a conversation without raising anxiety, without creating us versus them mentality. And so it becomes increasingly important as we're seeing in students to create those opportunities. So to be mindful of that and start to move people away from just saying, well, I have great rapport with kids. The kids in my class, I know all of them and we get along really well. That we can do better than that. And we have to do better than that. We have to really get to know our students at that level. So the original goal was to really set sights on having teachers identify a small handful of kids that they would really go out of their way. I can speak to the work that I did. I chose 3, and I'm so glad I chose those 3 because those 3, we have met time and time again. And that initial building of a relationship has allowed me as the principal to be able to work with these kids in ways that I necessarily wouldn't be able to moving forward. So what we did is we met as a staff and we broke into teams, into small groups. People could choose somebody individually, or they could work as a team to make sure that they hit a number of kids. And then throughout the year, it was really about saying, all right, let's have an update. How are things going with your students, and having teachers have an opportunity to reflect on that and kind of share. And it's like anything, you try to move the whole group at one time doesn't necessarily always work like you want to, but our early adopters were all in. The middle group comes around, and as next year comes and we build a consistency into this, I really look forward to seeing what this can become, because our schools need it. This isn't something that's just a fly by night. We're going to do something fun. This really it really goes to help a lot of the different initiatives that we have in the building and help everything function. So we have a staff meeting coming up next week. We're going to start to quantify that data to really build a baseline. So the indicators right now are largely anecdotal. I kind of chose an arbitrary number at the beginning because we don't really know where that number would normally be. And so we'll then be able to next year sort of build on that number to see, did we set the bar too low? Did we set it too high? And so, but the anecdotal data really does show it shows in hallways, and it shows in the learning, it shows in the interactions in class. And so as administrator, when you're in class and you're watching your teachers interact with students in a way that it wasn't like 4 or 5 years ago, that is where we know that these things are starting to pay off. And that's been supported through professional development. We brought in, a highly regarded school psychologist in the fall. We had Jessica Minahan last week. And so the message ends up being compounded, this idea that has to come back to this. And there's not a more important time, I think, for students to be able to reach out and have a connection with adults than as it is in middle school. So what we do to really look at it is we look at behavior data. So I have a form that teachers fill out anytime they want to make a behavioral referral, and it sends it to me right away. It comes in a spreadsheet, and I can look at it and I can see the decline in the number of referrals from September to June. Now, is that enough to go on? At this point, you know what, we're going to continue to build on that. But that's where I look at it, because if adults are having those connections, then we start to see it in those less emotional moments of anxiety. And if things are getting worked out at the classroom level because a relationship has been established, then we should see it on the back end with a decline in those behaviors. And I can say without question today, we see a definite decline in some of the student behaviors. And so we'll keep on it and we'll keep building on that and see, just where this can take us. And then, before we leave for the end of the school year, I want to put together a couple of student focus groups, one for each grade, to see how they have viewed this. Have they noticed a difference in how teachers respond to them and talk to them and work with them? So that's an important stakeholder group, because I can sit up here and champion all the things that we're doing, but if the students don't feel the same, then we know where the work is. The second goal was ambitious, but I can say we as close to completed as we can. I don't think it's something we're ever going to fully complete, because it's always going to be, a work in progress, but really moving from the current or the past MTSS level, the tiered support level, to something now that's bringing those supports in class, right, in a dynamic way, so that the student has an interventionist with them as the instruction is happening, and then they have an opportunity to work with that person, as opposed to once a week going to a separate classroom and trying to recapture something they did the week before. Going into this, it's hard to schedule that with middle schoolers and the rotating schedule, but our interventionists did such a good job of leaning into it, and it's very different than what they were used to. They were used to a very simplified system of this is how it works, and I turned that completely on its head. And I gotta just commend their professionalism for taking on this task and trying to find ways, to the point of running around like, okay, we've all got to take a breath, because now they're trying to do too much with too many kids. And I think that's a sign of something great, as opposed to, the opposite. And so we're starting to see those changes, and we've been having conversations the last week about what this looks like next year, and becoming very excited about how do we take the work that we did this year and now improve it. So, for example, with the indicators of success, we are seeing those kids who have math lab or lit lab in their, those interventions in their schedule, and we're seeing better MAP scores, and we're seeing improvement in confidence in classes. Our SST program is evolving. So in the fall, one of the things that we're going to adopt is really like a goal model with our student support team. So if a student is referred for academic or emotional reasons, rather than just saying we're going to put you in a math lab because you struggle with math, we have to identify what the skill is. What is the skill in math that needs to be targeted, so that interventionist can intervene specifically, as opposed to saying a general math phobia or anxiety. And so we want to really drill down into some of the things that we're doing to get granular in the work that we do, so that we are data informed, we're data focused, but also targeted specific intervention, so that we can see the goal that we need to do. Because if we're going to make a referral to special ed, we need to make sure that we've tried everything we can up to that. And so this is really an accountability piece, to say we've jumped through every hurdle, we've looked at every possible option. And so I like where we are in this process. It'll always be evolving, but I think we've nailed that goal to this point this year. That's it.
Great. Questions and comments for Principal Everhart? Elaine?
Yeah, I had a question about your first goal. Way back in the beginning of the process, when you were identifying the pool of students that you wanted faculty to pay special attention to, how were you identifying those students? Had they already been identified as high risk, or
No.
was it a little more organic than that?
It's a little bit more organic. We did it early in the school year, so a lot of our teachers wouldn't have known all the students particularly well. I felt like at the time it was important to keep it organic, because I don't want to bias teachers to say, here's our at-risk kids, and we're going to focus all of our attention there, because as we see so many times, the at-risk behaviors are those cries out for help, but on this side, there are plenty of kids who suffer in silence and need those connections. You never know it. So I don't want to label kids and have people shift this way, forgetting about a whole group that might be silent otherwise. So it's been more organic. And then as the year goes on, the idea is hopefully you add a few more to that group of kids that you have. And I think as we continue to do this, I think the success will speak for itself, and we'll get more and more, involved with and get more and more successful in that program.
And then how did you avoid the whole teacher's pet syndrome? When did kids notice that some kids were getting a little more attention than others?
Because in the way we try to do it, the middle school model is different than the elementary, in that you don't have as much time. You've got your 50 minutes that you're in a classroom. So that particular thing doesn't necessarily happen the way that it might if you had the kids in your room for the whole day. But it was important to do it in those unstructured times. And that's what we kept talking about. It's hallways, it's lunches. It's in those moments where you're not just in front of the class and I'm paying special attention to you because I want everybody to see it. It's more that subtle connection that I think is far more meaningful. And so that's what we push with staff. Find those moments in between passing periods, or if you see a kid in the hallway, you know, on your break and they're walking by, like those are the moments that are the most meaningful, as opposed to necessarily academic support in that moment. We want that person. So that's what we push that.
Well, and I think, you know, you said it was anecdotal data, but I think the reduction in behavioral referrals
Yeah.
is
It's remarkable.
hard data. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I should graph it. I thought about
Yeah.
that weeks ago, and I should just to see like the decline in it.
And then the other thing, I love your intervention plan. But that must have totally blown up your schedule to try to put those blocks in to provide more intervention. Was that?
No,
was
actually,
that
the opposite.
part of that whole thing that you did last year with putting in the extra English class?
No, that was something separate. So the way it used to work is your students have 5 unified arts classes, music, arts, so and so. Students would be pulled from one of those classes and they would receive the second intervention. The problem with that model, I think, is let's say a kid they're really struggling with his math, they're really struggling with math. So now I'm going to take you out of a class you like and put you in a 75-minute math class and expect you to be successful. It wasn't working. And it wasn't through no fault of our educators. They were trying, but there had to be a better way to reach kids. So working with Bastille, the idea was if we could flip that model, instead of having kids coming out of class to work, why don't we go into the class? And then that way they're working with the lesson as it's happening. And it's done in a much more subtle way. Listen, I'm here to help. I back up when you're on your own. The idea is, and then it's data collection. So that person can take data on success rate and proficiency and all that, and then report back to SST. So it actually made the schedule a bit easier because now every student can have all 5 of their unified arts classes. Before it might be 3 or 2, depending on the number of interventions that they have. So we've increased the number of students who get unified arts. We are more responsive in the intervention. I think the biggest part to the schedule was figuring out how to get the interventionists into the blocks so they could do it. What's nice about it doesn't have to be an everyday thing. We did it, so it was like 2 to 3 days per week, and that created the coverage too. So now that took off. Like I don't have to be in this class every single day. I can come twice a week. I'm still giving more intervention than I was under the old system, right? But I'm giving it more timely and I think far more effectively.
Yeah. You know what? I love the coherence of this too. It feels almost like an elementary model. So it's like providing some coherence from, the Shaker Lane to Russell Street and the middle school, that kids are getting the intervention, they're getting what they need.
Well, I think that's the UDL piece. You see
yeah.
it coming out in its policy and in its structures within the schools, because it's all about helping to support that. And as a district, we've been committed to that and we'll continue to be committed to that. So as administrators, it's important for us to build structures that allow for that to happen, as opposed to saying, here's UDL, go at it.
Right.
And so if we can find ways to do it in that way, and it just, makes it so that's just the way that it is, then all of it.
Thank you very much.
I wish my mustache would somewhere.
Yeah, no.
How do I do this? Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question with my parenting hat. As my kids went through school and you talk to other parents, this is not data driven. This is
Totally.
and with copy is a problem that I've seen in schools, that we've seen in schools, is the kids that are up here and the kids that are way down here, they get lots of attention. And the kids that are just right there and they're doing their thing. And I had many a parent go, I don't know if anyone notices my kid going through the day, and so in this program, can you speak to how you keep your eyes open to keep that?
So it's that's been part of the way schools operate.
Right.
The top 5 and the bottom 5% get 95% of the attention.
Right.
So this is an attempt to try and level that a little. So as an interventionist is in the classroom. The teacher provides their structure and they're working with kids, small group, individually, whatever, but the interventionist is doing the same and they're able to see things slightly different. It's a second set of eyes. So they're able to provide the teacher with, hey, listen, I'm working with this student, and this happens every day, where other students say, well, can I work with Miss Silva too? And so now while she's targeting intervention on this, there's also other kids who are part of it. So she's actually able to see things in her work that just sort of cast light on something that we might not see otherwise. Because some kids, if they struggle with writing, they may just be quietly doing nothing and hoping not to get seen. This intervention model allows us to have boots on the ground, see it in ways where the teacher is worried about, classroom management and instruction and time and the launch and the close. The interventionist has just a pure vision of student support and can look upon others. And so that's the one thing that we rely on most, and the communication between interventionist and classroom teacher to identify those students and then from there to seek support if needed.
Almost like student-teacher ratio matters.
It's
I'm
amazing,
sorry.
right? It has a bonus, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yes. All right.
Yeah, Jason, just thank you for understanding the importance of connectivity with your students and your faculty. That's really important. I guess to add to Janine's question, when you're in the classroom, when you're out and about, you're probably processing how many times a teacher interacts with a student. And when you're observing a class, it's very easy to determine whether the teacher is involving the whole class in the discussion or engaging the whole class or not.
Right.
So those are some of the strategies that are used in our schools to make sure that students are seen, heard, and valued. And the structured time is just as important as the unstructured time. The only difference is the unstructured time allows you to develop informal relationships that are very hard to develop in a classroom structure. So
Yeah, we look at things from, how many when a teacher's asking for questions, they call them the same kid every time, or are they spreading it out? We look at gender breakdowns. Are they giving equal time? Like there are just a lot of ways when we as administrators we walk in to see, because it's easy to call on the kid who always has their hand up, because if you're asking a tough question and the other 25 don't have their hand up, you at least have that one. And so there's a tendency to go that way. And so that's why UDL is great, because it moves us away from that to say more like, how do we bring you into this so that you feel confident? And so hopefully that little shrinks, over time and with proficiency and in the way that we do this. So,
Thank you.
all right, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Keith Camo, I'm the assistant principal at the high school. I'm filling for John because he is at his son's graduation tonight at Shrewsbury High School. So, gratitude to Luke and John.
yes.
Would have been here, but you got me tonight. So the high school, our first goal was focused on the development and implementation of what was once called the Vision of a Graduate, which is now shifted towards a Portrait of a Learner, more of a district-wide initiative. This is part of our upcoming accreditation, which is next May of 26. And so we're working towards that goal and working towards fully implementing what is our current Portrait of a Learner. And then how do we assess that? How do we make sure students understand it? And how do we develop those skills needed to successfully graduate kids with the skills, not just the content of their academic courses. So far over the course of really starting the end of last year, but the beginning of this year over the summer, we have reviewed the 6 competency areas that we're focusing on, and we've identified skills in each area. And kind of this is also shifting out past high school to the rest of the district. The other schools are also participating in these activities as well. We attended workshops with NEASC, the principals from Nipmuc Regional High School, Marianne and John Clemens and Mary Moran, who are the co-principal of Nipmuc, have met with us as an admin team, and then met with us as a high school team. And we've also sent our steering committee for our NEASC accreditation to NEASC 3 times this year to meet with them over the various aspects of the process of developing the vision of a graduate, now Portrait of a Learner. We have in the works a survey that will go to staff and students to help identify and highlight powerful learning moments in each course that students will be able to reflect on as they go through the vision of a Portrait of a Learner for the high school. And we did some of the beginning work for that, identifying as a steering committee some of the school-wide things that are happening, like the Financial Literacy Fair, which happened last week, is a school-wide event that's not necessarily tied to a class, but something that every kid will experience as they go through the high school. So we identify some of the bigger picture things as a steering committee. Now the next step in that process is having the teachers identify stuff or opportunities for learning in their coursework, and also the students who are going through the classes also saying, well, I remember when I was a freshman in English, this was one thing I really enjoyed. This is one thing I really connected with in terms of different skill development areas. That's our next step, is really putting together that bigger picture that Muck refers to as a roadmap. And it's a big visual thing of all different learning experiences, both in the classroom, outside of the classroom, in school and out of school, which our students will experience through their journey, not only in the high school, but also district-wide eventually. So that's a next step right now. We also have a plan for the creation of digital portfolios, which will be how we track student progress through the vision of a learner, and provide reflection opportunities throughout the course of their freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. And then ultimately, again, big picture long term, we're looking at having students do some sort of culminating presentation of their progress through the high school. And then starting next fall, as a continuation of this, this goal is we will be planning over the summer, myself and John, PD for September to really go through the process of implementing the reflective opportunities, the portfolios. There have been discussions locally, statewide, NEASC overall about what kind of rubrics you have, and the school-wide rubrics, which were common for the old accreditation system. We're kind of stepping away from those and more towards these reflection opportunities. So we're looking at how we're going to do that and how we're going to facilitate the student opportunities for learning or demonstration of their learning and their completion of the portion of a learning for the high school. So the indicators of success for this goal, in the end, we'll have the fully developed and published portrait of a learner, which will include the culminating experiences. We have the first part of it done. We have the competency areas, we have the skills identified. The next step is really putting into what does this look like day to day throughout the course of the 4 years of high school for each student. And so students will have developed their digital portfolios. We're talking with technology about Canva or other types of presentation options or storage options for the students to track their progress, and also the process through which the advisory teachers will help guide the students over the course of their 4 years. So we envision a process through which each advisory teacher, which has between 12 and 15 or 16 students each advisory, depending on the year, being really that guide for the students as they progress through each year of high school and helping students identify for themselves their most powerful learning opportunities that they can experience and the reflection that they've had and identify their personal pathway, identifying or acknowledging that each student will progress through the high school and experience the same things differently. And what one opportunity may be for a student to say, well, this made me an effective communicator. Another student may say, this was an area where I was a critical thinker. And it could be the same assignment or the same opportunity. And so having each student be able to talk about their personal growth, their personal journey of learning is what we'll end up looking at in terms of these portraits of learners. So that was the first goal. It's an ongoing goal. It's something that's part of the process for NEASC accreditation, but it's not the reason why we're doing it. Right? We want to be able to identify the opportunity that students have in the district, in the high school in particular, and acknowledge that the path is going to be different for different students. So it's not NEASC only, obviously. The second goal that we developed is, again, by June of 2026, so end of next year, we will have developed and implemented a well-designed, clearly communicated and documented multi-tiered system of support, the MPS model for the high school. This is something that has been in place for a long time. It's more about the really codifying of what we do and how we do everything for student support at the high school. Part of that, the action steps, is the continued emphasis on UDL. Actually, Jason talked about that in his discussion with the middle school goals, but really looking at how we are implementing those UDL practices in terms of teacher instruction, but also in terms of student product. So I think the easiest, if you want to call it that, part of the UDL implementation has been giving students choice in how they present their work. The next step, and the more important piece of this, is how do we ensure that teachers are having differentiated opportunities for students to take in the information as well, not just their output. So that's a continuation of the emphasis on UDL for us. Another thing that has been going pretty well the past couple of years, and is part of this overall process, is our Character Strong SEL curriculum, which we deliver through our advisories as well. And that's something that we've been looking at each year in terms of the effectiveness of the program and the implementation of the program. We've had teams working on making adjustments to the curriculum and to the individual lessons that come from the Character Strong curriculum and adjusting them to the needs of our building and our students. So this year we actually worked over the summer to pare down I think it was 15 overall lessons that we're doing with Character Strong. I made it 9 this year. We combined some of the content, and we built in more opportunities for, I guess, easier conversations between staff and students. And again, this kind of goes along with what Jason was talking about, building connections. The conversations that we're having with the students are not academic. They're everyday situations. They're, social situations. They touch on a variety of different topics. And I've had my advisory now for 3 years, so they're juniors. And so they've been through the entirety of our development of social emotional curriculum in the advisory process. And from my perspective, from my students' perspective, I think that the Character Strong curriculum and the conversations are very productive. And they're helping build those connections, build those relationships between staff and students that are so important to helping students feel connected and a sense of belonging in the building. Another action step is that we are in the process of really redefining what our academic support center can be and having clear, active, and frequent monitoring of student progress. Part of the impetus for this change was the fact that we were seeing an academic support center, which was not really intervention-y in nature. It was more of a small study hall. Part of that was because we didn't have a full-time teacher in there. We had an ESP that was running our ASC. But this year we hired a full-time teacher to run our academic support center and more efficiently and effectively track data of students that were in the ASC and making sure that the supports that we're providing in there were aligned with their needs, number one, but also helping them achieve their goals. So that was a big step this year. We reconvened our student wellness and achievement team, which is a team primarily of clinical staff and administration. So we can have more open conversations about student needs, academic, social, emotional, and behavioral. Attendance also is discussed in there as well. And making sure we're on the same page, understanding who our students are. And so if one student sees a particular counselor about what's going on, that counselor's out, they can go see someone else and have the same level of understanding of their needs. So we have reconvened that team. We're in the process of updating our SST manual and our processes and procedures of SST to make sure we are looking more specifically at data as we recommend different types of interventions through our SST model. And we've had extensive PD for our special ed staff on the new IEP and implementing the new IEP. I'm sure you all heard about the changes in the IEP process. So that's all part of this MTSS model is, special ed is part of that. Not the only part, obviously. So some of the indicators of success, we have implemented a lot of student success plans through our SST process, where we identify the specific needs, primarily academic, for students in their success plans and what types of interventions that they require. Part of that is through the ASC, part of that is not. Part of this through more of the in-class support. We did hire a dedicated ESP that was focusing on math tutoring this year. We had a segment of our student body that was struggling with math, but she has been both in classrooms but also in the ASC to provide individual support to students. We have done a variety of SEL screeners, surveys that students have taken to look at that data to gauge the effectiveness of our Character Strong curriculum and see where we're going with that. We've had some PD focus on behavioral and social emotional support. Everyone's so far mentioned Jessica Minahan last week. That was a very good PD focus on student behavior and social emotional needs and the impact of things like anxiety on student behavior. So having more and more PD on that really helps our staff understand the needs of students at a deeper level. And of course, we've adopted the new IEP as another indicator of success for our MTSS goal. Then on the next slide, there is the visual, Steve, of the portrait of a learner.
Oh, that's all I got.
Nice.
There was one.
There was a blue.
You must have the yellow package.
We've got it in our packet.
Yeah, in our package. So it's just a visual of the competency areas and then the identified skills. And so that's what we're building off of to again drive the student portfolio reflection opportunities for the portrait of a learner. So you all have the picture.
Yeah.
I think it's been presented before, so I think it's been out there. It's the same, very similar visuals that we've
I
had
found it, it's just not in the.
over the course of the year.
The portrait of learner, is that just a high school initiative, or has that made its way down to the middle school?
It started out as a high school initiative because it was part of the requirement for NEASC, and that we were calling the vision of the graduate at the time.
Yeah.
But over this entirety of the year, like I said, John and Mary Ann came to our admin retreat last summer and spoke to the entire admin team. And from that point, we've branched out the portrait of learner to the entire district. So all of the schools have engaged in activities with their staff to look at these skills and make them, or they will be making these skills and the language and the skills more user-friendly for younger students.
Sure.
And so we're identifying the same categories, we're looking at the skills that we identified as being indicators of success of each of these categories.
Right.
And it's going to be a district-wide thing.
Sure.
Well, John and Mary Ann actually helped us develop our own roadmap when we worked with them last summer. So everybody internally has that document, and that's a document we continue to build on. So we have consistency K through 12.
Right. Yeah. So I love it.
Yep.
I don't know if you're doing these things or if this is where you're headed, but you know, I see this as a concept that gets introduced, like for example, freshman year, like
Yep.
school-wide assembly
Sure.
or ninth grade assembly.
Of course.
And you talk about it and you check in, you give the students an opportunity to check in annually or twice a year
Yeah.
with where they feel they are. You know, geez, I'm doing really well at being a collaborator with my group projects, but I'm struggling with my opportunity to be engaged as a citizen.
Right.
And it just keeps it top of mind for them so that as they make their way through the high school, they're prepared for the next phase of life. They feel like they have a really well-rounded grasp on, you know, maybe I don't do all 6 elements really well, but I've at least had an opportunity to try.
Sure, of course. And so I see part of that happening more frequently than say annually or monthly, like through the advisory. It's gonna happen organically with me and my 11 kids in my advisory. I'm gonna talk to them about their assignment X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
We also envision a situation where we may use like student-led conferences as opportunities for that.
Yeah.
Have them reflect at the certain benchmarks of 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, of where am I in terms of satisfying all the areas, but also what's my strength? Like, so John and Mary Ann from Nipmunk, they have a system where basically a student presents who they are as a learner, and it could be I am an effective communicator, and this is why, this is how. Yeah, they touch on the other things as well, but they really highlight who they have become as a learner.
Sure.
And they've actually pared that down in their district to the elementary level where they're like, I'm an effective communicator superhero. And they have like little cartoon characters and like that's how they've aligned their district. So obviously we're in conversations about how we're going to do that here. But I do see the opportunity for reflection and that guidance with the advisory model as being a really good opportunity to have those check-ins.
Sure. And I see this as like, I'm familiar with middle school work right now, right? 'Cause it's, in middle school, they often like chunk a project down, like we're gonna do this aspect of it, and then there's check-ins and all that stuff. And perhaps a lot of that goes away in high school because there's independence, and that's really what we're trying to. Yes. But I see this as an opportunity as the project gets chunked down. It's like for this element, we're working on this.
Yep.
You know, try to master it, and then as we move on, we're here. And maybe I see this ultimately being expanded upon with, you know, further documentation or a couple pages on each one of these that gives the students a sense for where they might pick some of these skills up as it relates to the coursework or other opportunities outside of class or even in class, because it's a great visual, but we all might need a better understanding of how do we accomplish this.
And it's different now than it was in the old system, because in the old system we had our school-wide expectations of learning and all those things, and like most schools, I mean, I wasn't here when we developed those last time. They said, okay, the English department is going to focus on, you know, effective communicator,
right?
And history is going to do, you know, collaboration, whatever it is. And they had the rubrics assigned to this, and this project is aligned with effective communicator.
Yeah.
The difference here is that we are identifying the skills and we're identifying the competency areas, and the kids are going to be able to identify where they learn that, and how they learn that. So it's more agency for the students in this iteration of portable learning.
Mhm.
Yeah, I appreciate the emphasis on student agency, but I'm also wondering about the implications here for instruction.
Mhm.
You know, it looks like a lot of the tenets of student-centered learning.
Mhm.
You know, like, will the teachers have opportunities maybe in PD to learn how to provide more opportunities in their lessons for critical thinking
Mhm.
or collaboration or communication? You know, like
Sure.
it's hard for students to show these
Right.
attributes unless the teachers are providing lessons that
And what these things are.
incorporate that,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And we've looked at like project-based learning over the past couple of years, integrating more of that into our classes, and obviously the UDL principals talk to that as well.
Yeah.
And so while there may not be explicit instruction about what does this mean, but there are going to be opportunities for students to practice all these skills in our classes.
Yeah, I feel like it
Yeah.
has to be sort of a two-pronged
Absolutely.
approach, because I think high school teachers they have so much content knowledge and they have so much to share. And it's a temptation to be, to have the focus on the teacher because the teacher is imparting the learning.
Yeah.
But with these tenets, it's more student-centered.
Right.
So how can the teachers start to adapt their instruction to give these kinds of opportunities?
Right, and there's also the idea that not all learning happens in the classroom.
Right.
And so a lot of these skill areas can be achieved through other types of opportunities, not just in the classroom, whether it's extracurricular activities or the bigger school-wide events, like I said, the financial literacy fair, for example, or things like that. So a student may be able to reflect on becoming a skillful collaborator because they were in a jazz band, and talk about that experience, about how they became a team that way. So it's not going to be the same thing for every student. Yeah, there'll be elements that'll be similar, and the opportunities are going to be similar. But what students take from those opportunities are going to be really the more powerful, reflective actions for each student.
Yeah, the financial literacy fair is such a great
Yeah, it's
idea.
great.
Thank you for sharing that video. I watched
my
the
pleasure.
entire thing. Oh my God, it was, what an incredible, I really wish that had been happening when my kids went through the high school. It's this simulation of real life based on, I love that their credit score was based on their attendance. I thought that was brilliant.
That was a ring we put it.
But
We didn't tell the students that ahead of time.
Genius.
what's that?
They didn't tell the students at the beginning of the year that was going to happen, but some students were upset by that.
Well,
They had a low
it's
credit score. Yeah, absolutely.
So Elaine, the staff are involved in helping create the skill sets. And we come back to the leadership team table. We created commonalities. And then the next step as we continue to evolve, it will be I can statements. So the development of I can statements and having teachers involved in that are going to naturally lead to a reflection on instructional strategies to align with the I can statement.
Oh, that's awesome.
So this process is really cool. It's really intriguing.
Mm.
It's going to make such a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
So, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along, we've got a presentation on the post-secondary plans for the class of 2025, and by Superintendent Kelly Clenchey.
In your package, you have a list of colleges and universities that our students are going to. It's always a pleasure to take a look at where our students are headed after they graduate. Different patterns we see. I think more students are staying closer to home than they did 10 years ago. Obvious reasons for that. But, and I'm not going to point out the colleges because we have some, it's not the right thing to do. We have some pretty impressive colleges that some of our students are going to. Two of our students are going into the military. And we have two students entering the workforce or a gap year. And we've all heard of probably been exposed to it by now, the movement towards micro credentialing rather than associate degrees and university degrees. Is becoming part of continual retraining in those professions, including education as well. We have one student going to University of Ottawa. Nice to know that we're getting.
Thought we weren't gonna point out any schools.
Canadian universities. And I'm only pointing it out, because every dollar you spend, you gain 34 cents as of today.
Okay.
And in bonus, you get to learn Canadian.
Yeah. Sean, you should know he's Canadian. Yeah. You figured that out, I want that.
My relatives say I've lost it.
Oh,
So, just very impressive. It's always nice to see, the fact that our students, by the time they graduate from high school, they're not afraid to try new things and go to new places. California, I mean, you look at the list, yes, Scotland. It's just really, really nice to see that our students are ready for that, to enter that next phase of their life. So it's always a treat to see this every year.
Great. There's a couple of schools that have some high numbers, which would be typical, but it's amazing to me the number of like individual like enrollments, like right? One kid going here, one kid going here, one kid going here. I mean, it shows you with the portrait of the learner, like the skill set that they acquired here. We cast like Littleton then cast such a wide net across all these universities. It's pretty cool.
Well, I think it's also a testament to the skill of the guidance counselors at the high school. Like they work with every student one by one to try to help them chart their path. And it's, when you look at all these numbers, it's a really incredible feat that they've been able to support all these kids with their next step.
For sure. And when you talk to some of the students, I asked them, why did you choose this university? Do you have relatives out there or some type of friends that you've met along the way? And most of the time they say no.
What do they say?
This is the university I wanted to go to. I always wanted to go to that university.
Right.
I always wanted to live in that state. So it's just really things, we always say at times that kids are kids, but I have to say, being in education as long as I have, the graduates of today are very different than the graduates 20 years ago in terms of the skill sets they possess and the confidence levels. Well,
You were saying that there's more students staying close to home. I actually was shocked by how many are leaving and going so far. So it's just interesting, like such a diverse spread of where they're going.
I'm curious, the one that's going to Scotland, is that the one that was teaching himself all those languages? Do you know? No, not that. Okay. It would seem to follow a certain pattern.
Is that there? Great, thank you for sharing that. Fourth presentations from Steve Marr, your financial update.
So, again, the information in the report is in your packet. Has been my mantra all year. We're in good shape financially. Our goal is to make sure we have sufficient funds to meet all of our obligations for the end of the year, contractual, operating. Happy to say that our forecast is we have sufficient funds to meet all of our obligations and needs throughout the year. So that's good news. Glad to answer any questions, provide additional information as requested. I'd also like to take a moment while I have the floor to remind everybody about bus registrations. We laugh a little bit about it, but our numbers as of yesterday were 663 students. Our normal, I can't compare it to what we did last year at this time because we opened up the process so much earlier this year. Our normal number of students that ride the bus is between 950 and 1100, right in there. So we're really light on the registrations, and I'm wondering if that's because we opened it up early, and those people that are achievers maybe registered early, and those people who tend to procrastinate till the end of the year, maybe they're still waiting to do that. So we're hoping that's the case. There is a reminder message going out tomorrow night to all of the student population and families about the bus registration. We do have a number of families that have registered, but it's in process, which means they probably didn't complete the payment process through the link that's provided on their web page. So
If you have not received a confirmation email, if you started to register and didn't receive a confirmation email, your registration is not complete. You need to go back into the system and complete that process. So that's a reminder of that. And then just a reminder to everybody else, if you're waiting until the end of the year, the registration process closes on June 26th. Remember, we opened it up. We normally open it up in mid-May. We opened it up back in April. So we provided another 6 weeks. And again, my hope is that people just saw it and said, we'll do it later. And now they're waiting till later. But we are a little late on the registration, but I just wanted to put that out there. So anyway.
What do you do about families that move into town, say over the summer? Do
We
leave wiggle room?
Yeah, always. Any new family, we automatically put, if they want a bus, we put them on the bus. Yeah.
What's our most effective way to communicate to families? Is it the text message system that we have?
Yeah, I think it's our new app. That's what we're using, and that.
What's the enrollment we have on that? Nearly 100%?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I believe it's 100%.
It's 100%.
Yeah.
And have we pushed the bus registration through that system yet? Yeah.
We push the notification through that system, and they can, I don't know if they can get the link through that system, but they should be able to, but they can certainly go on the Littleton Public Schools website and there's a link there. So,
Yeah.
and their notification links to all the district web pages. So,
And the School Now app has a section where you can, it's the tool section, you can go right on our website from there.
Okay.
As well.
right. So again, remind people, everybody, if you're watching, remind your neighbors. If you want to ride the bus next year, you need to register, whether you need to pay, whether it's free, you still need to register so that we can get the list, develop the bus routes over the summer. And
You said it closes in how many weeks?
I'm sorry?
This bus registration closes when?
June 26th.
A month. Yeah, so
So,
probably need to push it a couple more times.
yeah, we're
With-
pushing it. There's a message going out tomorrow night. We'll work with the principals on the newsletters and do another push through those newsletters as well.
If I can get that message board, Indian Hill, just put it on the message board.
Well, we got the new one at middle school up and operating today, thanks to Jason.
Really?
Yep.
I've been having another great week all year.
We got the new sign.
It's gonna be like Rosebud. Like, people are gonna be saying that.
I don't know what I'm gonna do tomorrow.
The new message boards was installed this week. Jason spent some time, thank you to Jason, learning how to manage that and program that and put messages on that.
So is
So,
it a new board running?
yeah,
Yeah,
new
great.
boards.
What happened when they did the road construction, they cut the cords,
Ah,
so that was the last message in the system, they couldn't shut it off. I said to Steve, it was a good thing it just didn't say like holiday bazaar.
yeah, right.
Like,
Reminder, school closed tomorrow.
So the one that was bad was original for the school. It was 20 years old. They have a lifespan of about 12 to 15 years. So,
Yeah.
So new sign is in. We're working on one for new central office, working on quotes. Getting somebody to put some posts in so we can mount that. So working on that as well, but that's not a done deal yet. So
Sure.
working
Thank
on
you
that.
for the confirmation email. I think I've emailed you every year to check if I ever registered, so that confirmation email.
Yeah, the confirmation email was an addition we put on last year.
Yeah.
So,
And the report that's in the packet, the financial report, it's through March of 2025, right?
it's actually through April, actually. It's mislabeled, but so to remind everybody, we withhold teacher salary, so to pay them over summer. Those teachers that elect 26 pays compared to 21, that's about 1.7, 1.8 million in payroll that we haven't paid out yet. We pay that out in June.
Yeah.
We have a couple months of payroll to still record. We have some special ed tuition expenses, some maintenance contract expenses, some busing contractual expenses that we're still getting invoices for over the last couple of months here. So that's why the number looks high, but again, there's 6-7 something million in payroll that still hasn't been paid out.
Yeah, right.
So
You mean the available budget number looks like?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
I have no questions. You guys all set?
Thanks for always bringing good news.
Thank you. And then the last thing, I'll jump right into it, if that's all right, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, is the signature authorization. So this is requested by the town. So normal school committee, normal state law requires 3 school committee members to sign off on payroll and accounts payable warrants. The school committee can vote and elect one person to be the representative and have one signature on payroll warrants and accounts payable warrants. So that's what we have done typically as long as I've been here. The board has selected one member to represent the board and do those signatures. We do those signatures through DocuSign. So people can see it in the convenience of their home. They don't have to come into the office anymore. They can look at all the warrants and all the payroll and then sign off electronically. So we do need a motion from the board, 2 motions. One to authorize somebody to do payroll and one motion to do accounts payable warrants.
So this-
With,
So this falls under the oath to bills and payroll, which I'm assigned to.
right,
So I think what Steve's suggesting here is we should just put a motion on the floor so that it's public record that the school committee is in agreement that I'll be the individual signer. I've signed up for the task. We have to
right.
make it official.
So this is in addition to voting. Oh, I guess we
Because
didn't
we don't
vote for
vote
you.
that one.
We
What
don't
should-
vote on that
What we
one.
should do is
Right.
just vote that one next year.
Right, saved a step, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you want to do both, right?
It's-
So I move that Justin McCarthy be do the signature authorization for both accounts payable and payroll.
Second.
Motion made by Lynn, seconded by Sean. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll notify the town, give them copies of the minutes.
Thank you for doing that.
Great.
Thank you.
That concludes the presentation portion of the evening. This is our second opportunity for interested citizens.
Nobody online.
Okay. Sanders, you all set?
Yeah, I think I'm almost there.
Okay, good. We'll roll through our subcommittee reports first, and I'll preface this by saying we just started with our committees last week, so if you don't have much to report, although I did hear that some members have reached out to other departments in town and introduced themselves, so that's always nice. But I'll take them in order. So PMBC.
With PMBC, we discussed the Sugar Lane feasibility study. And there was a few other notes, not related to schools, but discussed the recent opening of the senior center, and then what's going on at 36 King Street, with that project, and then also that there may be some maintenance that's needed for the police department.
Yeah.
So, I guess there's water coming in, so, so,
It looked like the window there.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
The sponge.
Good day up.
They didn't mention any, I'm just curious, the DPW station that hasn't come up in conversation
I
yet.
didn't catch
She
that.
was posted on that, that's.
Well, yeah.
Budget subcommittee. I don't have anything to report.
Yes.
Steve covered the financials tonight, looks like we're in great shape. Policy subcommittee.
We didn't do anything.
Up and nothing since last meeting, and then is there a separate Shaker Lane Building Committee update? From either.
I wasn't at the last meeting, so
Yeah, I'd like to get, I mean, it just generally, we were discussing kind of the approach we're gonna take between now and the town meeting and then subsequent vote in the fall. And then also, we're going through kind of a schedule of what needs to happen between now and the fall, and kind of how rapid the pace is to get that stuff done.
I just add 2 things. We also have we have 2 community forum. We have a community forum that's going to be towards the end of June. That's coming up. That was we're going to be working on that.
24th.
Either the 24th or the
Figuring
25th.
out the dates, the end of June, and we have 3 school tours and information sessions, 1 in June, 1 in August, and 1 in October. And that's all on the Sugar Lane building website.
What is the community forum all about?
So the tours that we have set up in June, August, and October are a tour of the building and a Q&A, where the community forum that we're setting up on the 24th or 25th of June is really just a forum to kind of like the pre-meeting that we had before the town meeting. So we haven't really established if we're doing a presentation, but it's more of a
And we will be doing it.
the community in. and
Yeah,
not
question and answers.
There will be a presentation on the updated cost analysis for the building.
Right, and we hope to have some updated cost figures for our meeting with the select board and the finance committee, which is scheduled for June 9th.
And they're
Oh, they are.
had a
Great.
meeting this week and another one on Monday. Prices came in pretty close to what they projected.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, another couple of things, they talked about the CMR process, and they need to get that underway and submitted to MSBA. And they also had a presentation by Sarah Ross focusing on grant money that's available for geothermal wells as well. Grants are going to be good until 2030, which is perfect for the schedule that we have.
All right. When you folks talk to people, does everybody seem to know about Shaker Lane, or are you still running into people that don't know a lot about it, or surprised to hear about it?
I'm running into people that are bending themselves into pretzels over whether it should go, whether they could support it or not. And there's still questions that, quite frankly, needed to be asked 2 years ago when it was started. And I think more conversation is better.
Sure. I appreciate that comment. So I think we're always going to run into folks that want to ask their questions. And I think our response needs to be that we have vetted that question and here's the answer to it. And like, whether you asked it 2 years ago or not, we've gone through the process to say, fortunately, well, it should be fortunately, this is where we are. This is why we are here. People are going to say it costs too much. People are going to say it's in the wrong spot. People are going to say we should be doing it all, whatever. And as a school committee, we really aren't technically supposed to be all for it or all against it or whatever. But what I want to make sure that the school committee does is make sure that everybody knows about it and everybody has access to the information.
Yeah.
And then every citizen can make their own decision.
Right.
But what would upset me is if people vote one way or the other and they don't understand the project or the need for the project or the process that the project has gone through. Michelle?
We have another postcard going out to every household member in Littleton that should be in their mailboxes by next week. That has information again. So we did one in October that went to every household resident in Littleton. We do have it again going out next week, that has the school tours and the information session. So trying to get it out.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Because when I was at town meeting, people were like, why am I just learning about this now? This feels rushed. You're twisting my arms. And it's like, no, this process started like 7 years ago and we didn't get in and we've been working on this for 3 years and here we are.
We started the conversation 12 years ago.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I just can't share this chart yet because it has to be vetted again at one news meeting. But they did put a chart together of the school builds that are going on right now and compared the square footage cost to the cost. We're actually at the low end. I think there are about 8 comparisons. So, I mean, it's just what
Where are
are
the
the
other
odds?
ones? California?
What's that? No, they're all in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say
All
something.
Massachusetts, all MSBA supported projects.
Good.
Yeah, but I mean, these are the costs and it's going to be a good comparison to look at because it also dispels the rumors at times that we're trying to build a castle.
Right.
Because we're building a school that is very similar to what every community would build if they were building a K-2 school or another elementary school. There are no special parts to it that are unique just to us. I mean, schools are designed around educational plans, and I think that's a point we need to continue to emphasize. And the den spaces are simply I mean, if you have a hallway that's 10 by 20, we're creating wider den spaces by shrinking that hallway in half and making it irregular. So we're not adding space, we're using space in a more efficient manner. So those are the messages that we need to continue to get out to the public. Yes.
Could we, you brought up some numbers of years that things have been talked about. Could we come up with a statement that was accurate about it? So when we talk about the project, well, we, having started the conversation in X year, and then really started working, a committee was formed 3 years ago, whatever, in this year. And over the last 3 years of work, we have come to where we are now. And just like get ahead of that whole.
We already have that. That's right in there, our presentation.
Yeah, I would like it, because I would like to use it in conversation.
Okay.
So the,
On our web, if you can't find, it's right on our web, all of our presentations are on our website, so you can't, if you don't feel you have what you need, just let me know.
So I'll go find it. But that's, it just occurred to me, and you're right, I mean, we hear this came out of thin air when we know it wasn't, so just having those statements to get ahead of that.
Sure.
Yes.
I think one of the best examples of the town most recently is perhaps like the apple orchard and what the town was gonna do with the apple orchard and the apple orchard working group and all the hours that went in, and then town meeting happens and people are like, why don't we try this? Why don't we do this? So ultimately they ended up putting together like an FAQ, which had all of the, why don't we do this instead? And it gave you the answer as to why we're not doing that. And I think that if we already don't have something put together for Shaker Lake, like we need to have all of the questions, we have that readily available.
We actually do.
Okay.
I'd say if you think there's a question on there that, we do have an FAQ, yes, but
Alright.
if there's a question on there that you think we should look into and answer, please let
Yeah,
me
let us know.
Or I will take a look at it and we could all just start forwarding stuff that we hear
Oh, that'd be perfect.
from the community, because we're gonna get a lot of, why isn't this a 1 to 4 school? Why is it here? Why does it cost so much? Didn't you think of this?
Mhm.
And the reality is that all of those have been addressed, but when it's the week of town meeting, all of a sudden it like stirs up a bee's nest.
Right.
And we don't certainly want that. So, Mr. Sanders, I saw that your hand up. I'd like to allow you to speak on the topic again, if you so choose to do so.
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. One of the big mistakes that this town makes is that people become concerned about how much is that going to increase our taxes. And it seems though that message doesn't get to the right people, and they don't start kicking that number down the road early enough so people will have an idea as to what our tax is going to look like. I'm a firm believer that where we have information, whether it's finalized or not, if we have a figure as to where we are right now with costs, we ought to tell the people. And when we come in with information that adjusts that, we ought to tell the people. The other one is going to vote nay or yes at the town meeting. And you will be flabbergasted if they said no, let's don't go forward. So if we can educate the people and let them know, as I pointed out in my program, how we can give you some relief with regards to this taxes as to how much that is the key. I'm gonna tell you, that is the key with that school, because we never been at the point of them talking about $100 million with the state kicking around. I don't know where they increased the 38% that they said they was gonna give to the school for it, but still, we up in the $60 million plus And people said it's $60 million. I think it's $60 million plus interest for 30 years. So, you know,
Probably 20 years.
well, 20
Mr. Unity
years.
would never let us borrow money.
That's true. All right, but 20
Way
years.
too expensive.
20 years, but that is what you got to do. And I always preach that when I'm on my program about kicking the can down the road. You got to give the people the information, even though it may be temporary.
Mhm.
You pull more people in that way than you will trying to give it to them at one time.
Right.
Thank you.
Good point.
In agreement. I do think that we've done a good job of sharing information. It's kind of back to that CPAC comment. It's like there are wonderful resources out there. You gotta find them, but we have to continue to push the information out, and we have to try every avenue possible to try to get it to them, because people are, it's like UDL. We have to give them the message in the form that they want to receive it. Any other subcommittee topics or new business or old business before the committee? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Motion made by Ms. Woods, seconded by Ms. Patel. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We have adjourned, 9:21.